Welcome, ladies, to this International Women's Day special between myself and Jo. We're organizing this as part of IWD between her company and my company. So today we have with us two ladies who have written books, Lillian and Prema. Welcome, Lillian and Prema.
Thank you, Krista. Hello. Hi, Joe.
Yeah, we're so glad that you have said yes and to share with us the very meaningful books that you both have written. There is so much, I believe, behind the call and what drives you. So we would love to hear that today. And both of you have written a number of books. So for Prema, the first book was hard copy, Nina and Her Secret. And after that, there were three online books, Lisa and Her Secret, Yusri and His Secret, and just newly launched today, Sarah Says No. So we celebrate that with you and the team. And for Lillian, there's a whole series of beautiful Penang related, I believe, and Nyonya related books, Straits Chinese Gold Jewellery, Straits Chinese Embroidery and Beadwork, The Gilded Age, and Once Upon a Kamcheng. So we're really excited to hear what's next.
So let's start with the first one. Maybe Lillian, we can start with you. How did the ideas for your book come about? Or your books? You have so many books, right?
Why I started writing was because I had a major operation that year that just before this first book. And so that time I thought that if I were to die, my daughter is not going to know who she is. And your identity is so important because I was acting in The King and I, and that time I was just one of the market girls. And so we sat by the drain, we ate buns, and we slept while waiting for our call. And then another movie, I was a Nonya in Little Nonya, and I wrote to Dawn. And I remember the older Nonyas were saying, like, if we are so tired the whole day and there was no chairs, we wanted to lean against a tree, and they will say, hey, tak tentu ah, don't do that. And when people are rushing for the food, they say, no, we will wait for the food. So I realized that even in acting, while I was a market girl, in a Thai market or a Nonya, the way I carried myself was different. So I then realized how important it is that my daughter will know who she is and my son. So ended up that I then wanted to archive and write the books, and basically it's because I find that I'm like the last of the Mohicans. I am between. I've seen my grandmother Berkeman at home, wearing sarong kebaya, tesa, and all that, and my daughter has not. So because by that time my mom was like wearing casual blouses at home and all that, unless she dressed up in sarong kebaya. So I think that there was this gap that they are not. They will be, even though they are in the culture, they will be just listening to stories and not really experiencing it. So I wanted to archive that. So my whole mission is to archive and document the Baba Nonya culture before it's lost and forgotten. And so I started with, of course, my favorite title, Jewellery, which is for the reason why my daughter is actually called named Jewel. So this book is like dedicated to her. So that was the first book. And then after that, it came embroidery and beadwork. And that is because, the wedding dresses are so magnificent. But what is the use, what is the purpose of a glittery dress if you do not understand why it's made that way? And so it is actually the motives that gives away the desires of the parents or even the girl herself of her wishes and dreams, whether it's wearing orchids, and that means that you wishing that you're marrying a scholarly gentleman, scholars and painters and writers, or you want for yourself phoenix and peony, beauty and honor for yourself. So that's it. And then the Gilded Age came about because I was invited to curate an exhibition in Taiwan National Museum of Literature, and it was a 6 months exhibition. So I did lectures there. We had an opening ceremony, and the exhibition ran till from 2019 to 2020, plus one more month because of COVID. They couldn't return us our artifacts. And so this book was to support that exhibition. Then, of course, this book, Once Upon a Kamcheng, is probably my proudest because it was during COVID. And I kind of like didn't want to sit at home and lose to COVID. So I used the stay at home time to call up all my friends and tell them, send me your stories and we will get them published together. So we, 6 other people responded. And so this is an anthology of 13 stories by 7 writers, including myself. And I felt so good because the 2 stay-at-home years was very fruitful. It was productive. And a lot of people who are just like 1 or 2 stories of grandmother, they couldn't get a whole book published. They found themselves publishers. So their names are in here as the writers. And of course, the sense of ownership and joy that I'm writing my grandmother's story and the relatives can all read it. So that is the most meaningful.
Wow.
And Prema, what about you?
I think the motivation came from really my involvement with the Women's Center for Change, WCC Penang. And they have been conducting a program for almost 25 years now on the prevention of child sexual abuse. So working together with WCC, I mean, we saw the need for children to have simple material, things that they could, take home and read and think about it. And that was the motivation for the book, to have easily accessible, easy to read material on a very difficult topic. So that was how the book first came about in 2007. And, it then was translated into several languages to ensure broader reach. And then, it was really during the COVID time in 2019 that, people had time to look at the material and say, we need to upgrade, we need to put a new face on the material. And so then the concept of these online books then took place. And so we had a book, Lisa and Her Secret, was about a girl. And then we also had Yusri. And it's very interesting because people don't normally talk about boys being sexually abused. So we felt it was very important to have a story about a boy being sexually abused and what happens. And the book, which was released today, is about children with disabilities. So to really raise the awareness that, when you're talking about child sexual abuse, it can happen to any child, whether it's a girl child or a boy child, and children with disabilities are especially at risk. So that really is the motivation of these stories, is to really be part of the Women's Center for Change prevention of child sexual abuse programs.
And how long did that process take, writing each of these books?
The writing doesn't take very long because they're very short books, but what takes the process is getting everybody's input, and then, checking that the language is suitable for children, working with the illustrator. That can take months, really, trying to get the correct design. We use cartoon characters, and so to work on that. So we've had brilliant illustrators from, I'm just trying to remember their names. There's a C Square, and there was Azmi Hussein, and also Faizati Muhammad Ali. And these three, have really helped us with the illustrations and the colors. So, the text, I realize in doing this, doesn't take that long to do. It's a short book, but creating the whole effect at the end, that can take several months. So it's a bit of a journey. Each book has its own bit of research which needs to be done, and then putting it together, packaging it so that it is as creative as it can be. Yeah.
And Lillian, how long was that process for you writing each of your books?
Different books was different. Jewellery was very fast because I just love it, and I already very well understood the jewelry. But of course, the interesting thing is that when I can't just write about Nonya jewelry as it is, because the fact that we're Chinese and we're wearing jewelry like this, which is not Chinese. So I had to put it against the world history of jewelry, European history of jewelry, Victorian, Chinese, Nusantara, and Indian even. So then I just discovered fantastic and wonderful things. One of which is that we had a lot of repoussé and canotille work, which is like wire work. And that time was the Etruscan excavation and the Hellenistic excavation in Europe. And so everybody was like, wow, these fantastic techniques that these ancient people have, wow, they were crazy over it. And then Castellini, one of the jewelers, he started making jewelry. But for us in Penang and Malacca and Singapore, we were so fortunate. Well, all these Europeans didn't know that the Indians and the Sinhalese, the Ceylonese, were all the time doing canotille work. So we have Little India in Penang. And so the Nonias just took all the catalogs from the British and we sent them to Little India and we got all the Nonia jewelry done. And the thing is that up to today, the Little India goldsmiths are still sending works to be sold in Dubai. So, and then also the Babas, they will always wear a bintang, a star brooch. And a lot of people have commented that, oh, that's because we are in Malaya and it's a Malay country. So that's why they wore the star first, which is like what we have on the Malaysian flag. Well, when I did put it up against European history and the history of jewelry, I found that it was because Halley's Comet made an appearance. And so all of Europe was in a frenzy over it. And the Chinese, they were pantang, you see comets and all that, they run and hide in the house. Well, not the Baba Nonias because they were Anglophiles. And so it landed on the lapel of the Babas. So that was actually from a comet and not because it was a Muslim star and all that. It would have been also shared from Nusantara, but that was the reason that why we had the star brooch. So
That's
history is very
fascinating. I didn't know that.
yeah. And then what was the question again? Oh, how long?
Yeah, how long?
This Once Upon a Kamcheng was the shortest because I wanted it out by Christmas. But it was the most difficult because a lot of people could tell me the stories, but they could not write. So I had to write pretending to be an elder matron who is very wise, or a gentleman, or somebody else. Because only two of the authors gave me like what they wrote. The rest I had to write for them. And then I had to do the grammar check myself because we had limited budget. So I hate doing the grammar check and the proofreading again and again. Like I was reading the story like maybe 30 times, but then by the time you get lulled and you just gloss over the mistakes again and again. So that was the most difficult thing.
Even though both your books are very different, I'm really touched to see the passion that you have, the motivation you both have to share your writings based on something very close to your heart, and that will be a blessing to many, I believe. So I want to ask, how has the journey of being a part of this book transformed you? And what are some of your dreams for this book? Prema, do you want to start?
Okay. I didn't start out being a writer. It was something which just, it came out of a need to do something. And so the process of writing, this little storybook, I mean, it just made me so aware of the different ways one can put a message across to children. And, the importance of words, the importance of imagery, and the importance one has to give to detail and the thread of the story, even though it's a short story, the continuity of the storyline to make sure that the messaging uh, the messaging is there for the child. So you've got messages about what to do should you receive a bad touch and who to go to for help. So there's so many layers for the for in the story, and the storybooks actually address both the adult and the child. So in having to write that way, it really forced me to think, for every sentence or every two sentences, we'll be thinking, how would a child understand this, and how would an adult take this? So constantly, there's this thinking process going on for something which is very, very short. It's like about 40, maybe 50 sentences at the most. So the process made me a little bit, or made me a little bit more disciplined in terms of what words to use, the length to have, are the messages in there. So in that sense, for someone who doesn't come from a writing journalistic background, it was quite interesting to have to put together a story, to have a start, to have a middle, to have a finish. So yeah, so that's the transformation for me. But in terms of dreams, I have several dreams for this book.
Oh, wonderful.
One is, of course, all the books really, to be able to create that space which both adults and children need to discuss this issue. And sometimes people find it very difficult to say, I don't know how to talk to the child about it. But if you have a storybook, then it doesn't start off as a personal safety session. It just starts off as we're having a story, just going through a story. So the first hope really is that it creates that space for discussion and raises awareness. The second hope is really more specific to children who do need the help. So when a story like this is read to them, or they read it, they realize they're not the only ones going through something like this, and they can get the help, and they just need to tell someone about it. The third dream really is for adults who read the story to realize how important it is for them to be aware of child protection, that child sexual abuse can happen to any child. And so they need to be aware about this, and to help the child, equip the child with at least being able to tell them something is happening. A lot of the time, children keep very quiet about it. And the final one is that for anyone, whether it is a child or adults who have been through child sexual abuse and have not told anyone about it, if they read this little storybook for children, my hope is that they will understand better what happened to them, and that they can reach out. And I think WCC, when they've had some feedback from some of the books, has been from people who have experienced something like this. Yeah. So those are my dreams for the book. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, so powerful. Because like you say, even though it's just 40 over sentences, when I heard the message too, I thought this is such a powerful tool to empower voices, which probably may be in shame and guilt, but this
Yes.
makes them realize, that this is something that they need to speak up about and not be intimidated and threatened. And for adults to know too that things can be exposed, and they are to trust, right, the children.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
wonderful.
they are to listen to the children. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Prema. And yourself, Lillian, how has the whole journey transformed you?
Well, I think I enjoy the journey very much because, like the first two books, which are non-fiction, and so it requires a lot of research, and I had to go down to Singapore and even England to go to their libraries and read up. And then
Wow.
like, when you are researching on a topic, you can go on to you can just go into orbit like
You
I'm
can go down
writing.
a rabbit hole, right? You can go down a rabbit hole.
I am writing my fifth book on European jars and infants, which is so hard to do. And so while I was researching it, like, how do like we've got 50 items of the same wavy thing. So how do you describe that wave in at least 20 ways, so that people won't read and say, oh, it's a wave, again, a wave, a crimp, a ruffle. And so I remember I was in my office and trying to find, actually I Googled all the types of wave formation, actually from the sea. And then like gathering and gathers from uh, clothing, how a tailor does it. And I remember my boss telling me, "Hey, what are you doing? You're wasting the time. Are you playing with the computer? Why are you looking at oceans and uh, 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 tailoring?" And that is it. You start going out to understand just how to name a term, and then so that's for the and one of the journey that I'm very excited about this book was that University Science Malaysia decided to use my book as for their School of Translation, a language. So that these five Malay girls with tudung, they came and they interviewed me and they bought the books, they read through, they asked me questions because they were translating my book into Malay. And of course, by the research, I realized what kind of writer I am. I like to write in rhymes, apparently. And the best part was at the end when we were presenting the final book, translated book in the USM itself. These five girls were dressed in sarong kebayas. I had managed to enculturate them. It was so wonderful to see all these girls wearing kebaya, and then they went to a studio and they took photographs and sent it to me.
Wow.
For this embroidery one, is also about discovery. So there was one time I was doing a curtain. So they had these curtains with a deer and a fir tree and a crane. And like I didn't know whether it was for a wedding or whatever, so I was researching. And then I first time in my life I came across it says, look at the deer. Is it a spotted deer? And it says a deer is a very special animal for symbolizing longevity. But if it's a spotted deer, it's a very rare deer that the medicine man, the Chinese medicine man, will want to find it and cut off the antlers because they will be like a fantastic miracle medicine and all that. So I remember hitching up my sarong and running all the way to look at the curtain. And yes, it was a spotted deer because it's something like you'll miss, it's just a deer. So it was a spotted deer. And then my research tells me if it's a spotted deer, look at the mouth. Is it holding a lingchi or biting a lingchi in the mouth? Yes, it is. And then look at the hooves and the antlers. And yes, the hooves were in purple, the antlers were in purple, because apparently this deer that ate the lingchi, it went into their bodies, and so it went up the tonic, went up to the antlers and the hooves, and that is why the medicine man will want to take their antlers. So it was now deers look different to me, and then it says in other books it says if you find a spotted deer and a fir tree and a crane, it is a multiplication. It's amplified. Longevity is amplified. It's no longer wishing you a long life with one deer. No, you've got the fir tree that can withstand winters and cold, and it's strong and sturdy through centuries. And the crane that is silver and uh, that will take the soul to heaven. So all these three amplify longevity. So it's like, whoa, this is one very powerful curtain. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So the journey has really made you more, how would you describe it, Lillian?
Because now when I look at a dress or embroidery work, I look at the motifs and what is the craftsman trying to portray, or what is the hopes, the wishes of the person to buy it. Even like porcelains, why do they have different symbols? So every symbol in a wedding dress or any Chinese embroidery has meaning. And
Wow.
but at that time, the Nonias, we were Anglophiles. We don't understand Chinese classics or Mandarin, so we just like the motives, and we basically understand a little bit. But now that I have done research on the motives, it has every garment has come alive
Wow. So
with the
you're
wish.
trying to yeah, so you're trying to convey that to your readers to really look in depth and see the whole richness of the whole heritage and culture behind it. That's wonderful. What would be your dream, Lillian, for people, I mean, for your books? Do you have
Uh,
a dream for it?
Basically, is to archive and document the culture so that for posterity, others will look at it and say, oh, that was like in the year 2000, that's how they view or remembered what was 100 or 200 years ago. You see, our Malaysian Chinese culture is very special. I mean, other cultures are special, but because I understand the Baba Nyonya culture, because I have Chinese tourists who come from China and say, tell us about the people who came to Nanyang. What happened to them? And I said, look at me. I can't speak Mandarin and I can't read Mandarin. And like, why are you wearing a dress like this if you're Chinese? So it is so interesting because when they came in, say, 1400s, the 1400s people had all that they remember of China in the 1400s. And so they came here and do the prayers, the 1400 style. They dressed the 1400 style. And China went through the Cultural Revolution and the turbulence of the history and the succession of dynasties, and they lost it. And so we become the we become the retainer of these stories, retainer of these practices, because when the China people come and we show them the way that the worship is, the temples and all that, they say, oh, we haven't seen this before. Oh, yeah, this was so long ago. We do not have it in the motherland. But the diaspora actually protected the Chinese culture. So we are inheritors of, or the protectors of the Chinese culture here, so far away, as the diaspora people.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, that was a fascinating story about the deer and the antlers. I never knew that. So the next time I look at some motifs, I will pay special attention to them. I will just think that just
crows and crows, you think they're just to love the background, but no. Whenever you see a trailing design of curls that goes on and on, it is the picture. It is a picture of say a peony, beauty and honor, and there are twirls and curls around it. It means may the beauty and honor go on and on and on, abounding. So it's just not like one beauty and honor for you. It spreads.
Wow.
So basically, there's a message in the motifs, right?
Yeah.
So if we know how to read the motifs, so now I want to ask this other question. Maybe Lillian or Prema can answer. But I think Prema did mention that a little bit. What was the toughest part of writing your book or books? I think Prema did cover that just now. You mentioned that, yes. Yeah, maybe Lillian can, yeah. Or maybe Prema, yeah, since you
Yeah, I think trying to keep it short, trying to keep, it's very odd because, when you think about people writing, you never tell them, look, you have a page limit or a word limit. You've got to fit everything in so that you don't lose the child's attention. So it was a struggle to keep it short and to maintain the storyline and to make sure it's not too abrupt and to fit in. So we were trying to do everything within 40 to 50 sentences. So that was quite challenging at times. It was also quite funny because, you kind of think, can I leave this out? And then you think, no, you can't. So that was a little bit interesting. And of course, WCC has taken the book and is translating the online books into five other languages. So it'll be available in 6 languages. Now, when you start to translate, then you realize that, the simpler the language you start off with in the beginning, the better for the translator. So that is in itself, is a whole nother chapter. When you're translating, it becomes bigger in certain languages, or so that is
so that's a key tip, right? If you intend to have your books translated, keep the language as simple.
I know, but I wasn't thinking about this when the first book came out. We just never thought about it. And the other difficult thing was trying to keep the story real, but not frightening.
Yeah.
So you want children to be aware of something, but at the same time, you don't want to frighten them. So, all the while, we're always double checking, is this scary? Is this not scary? Should we change the color of the cartoon? So that was trying to keep it real in terms of reactions and what a child could do, and not balancing that with, not too scary so that, the child, is not frightened by the story. So those were some of the difficulties. Yeah.
And Lillian, what were some of your
It's a
difficulties?
because we do not have very good materials or support here. So I always have to travel to Singapore or England, and then I have to like understand the books. And that in Singapore, in Singapore, $1 is our $3 for every page. And then in England, I remember I was so naive. I just walked into the archives, the National Archives, and said, "Can I have some, get these books and these books?" And they say, "No, you have to make an appointment like 2 months or 3 months ahead." So there was a wasted trip. But then I went to other museums and got. Then secondly was words, because like in story, she said, but the whole book cannot be she said. So she laughed. She
Mm.
she was thoughtful. The different words that you have to use for the word said. And then that was, like say for example, the embroidery book, or even the jewelry book. How many times can you use the same words like gold and diamonds? You want to use other words because people get tired. And for me, the most formidable or the most I least like is the grammar check and proofreading. It makes me go crazy. And
I,
want to
I support that. I support that.
I want to kick myself like, why did I get this started?
But that's almost at the end, right? That's really the end of the book already, right? Yeah.
How about for budding authors or those who really have a desire to write a book, but they are afraid? What is your advice to them?
I would say just do it. That means like you write a diary, and so you just write it down because and it will flow. But I know that for some people it may be so difficult because I have ladies who have got good stories, and they are unable to articulate or even write down, and I have to like prompt them for everything. So I think some people will just be able to do it naturally, and some will need help. And then, of course, even when you're writing, let's say interviewing somebody, okay, there was this old lady, I didn't say old, older
Senior.
senior aunt, and I just asked her an innocent thing like, "So, Mrs. Koo, how did you meet your husband?" She's a Nonya, I remember. And she just looked at me with disdain and said, "How could you even ask me that question?" Like, what's wrong? But to them, the proper Nonya is like, you don't ask this kind of private, personal questions. Like, I just asked how you met him. Yeah, so then the sensitivity, just like aware of it. Yeah, but I would say just write it. Just start writing. And which is what I did for this book. The writers, they were like, "Oh, we cannot write now." I said, just, you can throw them something like, say, "Tell me about scandal in your family. Change the names." Or what was your most wonderful uh, uh, memory of your mother? And start writing. So just give them a topic.
Very true. The right prompts. Yeah. Thank
I
you.
mean, I would agree with that. I think you just encourage people to put down on paper, just really, or type it in wherever you want to write it. If they have a thought, if they have a feeling, or if something moves them or something bothers them, you write from your heart, and you don't have to publish it. You just write it, and then you can go back and look at it, and you can see what you want to refine. Doesn't matter if it's a sentence, two sentences, a paragraph. Just put it down and come back to it. So yeah, just write.
One of my
That's so true.
first encounter with like I could write was that I know I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I was trained as a storyteller in Hawaii. So I was doing storytelling at the Rainbow Arts Festival. But there was this lady, I forgotten her name, and she came and did an interview on Kabaya. And she said, "When you come, bring your mother's Kabaya." And she sat us on a chair and we held the kabaya, and then she put a mirror in front, and we could put on our kabaya, and she says, "Tell me what you feel. What does this
Wow.
kabaya reminds you of?" And so I thought, "Oh, my grandmother's." And my grandmother is always nagging me to do something. And I always thought, why she's so lazy. Then when now that I'm getting older, I understand. So
Mm.
so giving them something and talk about it.
Mm. Oh, that's a very good one.
Mm, mm.
Mm. Well, we've both been really encouraged, I think, Krista and myself, listening to both of you, Lillian and Prema, sharing so much gems, from your journey that I believe will inspire many. And yeah, Krista, you want to ask about the contacts that people
Yeah.
can write into
How
them?
can people connect with you if they're interested to know more about you or your books
Yeah, either your Gmail, your email, or your
or your
LinkedIn, or
social
your
media, wherever you want to send them to?
For me,
Um,
is okay. Prima, you go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Yeah.
Lillian? Yeah, maybe you start first. Yeah.
So you can go to my Facebook at Lillian Tong, Tong, Lillian Tong, or you can email me at naughty nonya at gmail.com. The Nonya is spelled Nyonya, and there's a reason why I'm the naughty Nonya, because back in those days, the ladies who go Dondang Sayang, my grandmother would say, "Oh, this ladies, they go, how can a woman go to a club and play mahjong with another man? You play in your house with your friends, your girlfriends. You don't go and play with another man. Or how can you go around Dondang Sayang and singing with other men in the past and dancing? That is really bad. That is tak tentu, tak seronok. Those are the naughty nonyas." And now I'm the naughty nonya. I go around with some homage, Dondang Sayang, dancing and singing.
That's a very cute name. While passing on your heritage and culture, right, Lillian? You're such a big advocate in Penang for that. We're really, really blessed in Penang to have you.
And Prema, where can people
Yeah,
find
I
you?
think just write to WCC at wccpenang.org.org. Yeah, and so they will have information about the book, and if they need support, the organization is there to support them. And if they do want to contact me directly, the organization will pass it on. So it's WCC at wccpenang.org.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you, ladies. Wonderful. I think Lillian, you have told us a lot about Nyonya culture, a lot about your life too, while telling the story of your culture. And Prema, thank you also for writing your books to help parents and children understand more about abuse and how they can help children or at least adults understand the issue better. Joe, any last words?
Yeah, I'm with the Special Children's Center, so I'm really excited to hear that you've got Sarah Says No. And yeah, we will pass the word around to all the parents so that they can empower their children too. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
really big thank you, yeah, ladies, for the work that you're doing, and keep it up. And we hope that many will be inspired to do the same too. Thank you
Thank
Thank
so
you.
you,
much for joining us
Krista,
today.
Thank
Josephine.
you.
Thank you, and Lillian. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you
And,
too, Prima. We must meet up then.
Nice meeting the naughty Nyonya.
Yeah.
we were just interviewing Pearlie just now. I don't know whether you all have been to her house to have her home cooked private meal. Yeah, so we hope to gather our Penang women
Female
authors,
authors.
yeah,
Oh,
together.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
we'll let you
nice.
know soon, okay?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think maybe the final thing that I want to say is the reason why we all write books is because we want the message to be out there, right? Somehow, other whatever genre you're writing, whatever books you're writing, I think the key is that we want someone to read our message, and maybe someone who reads that message will be empowered by your message and feel
Sure.
stronger and more courageous after that. So happy
That's right.
International Women's Day, ladies.
Okay, happy International
And
Women's
to all of you.
Day.
All
Thank
right.
you for
Okay,
having us.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.